Hey guys, Michael from Wasatch Fitness Academy, and this is part 2 of a little talk on training for climbing. In part 1, we broke down parameters for success, some of the things that we need to be thinking about for climbers, determiners of success or failure. And by climber, I really mean broad spectrum, everything from someone who's primarily bouldering to climbing in the gym, to sport climbing, trad climbing, doing alpine work, doing mixed modality, ski mountaineering, long mountain expedition work, or even just one-day, high-risk, high-intensity alpine adventures. So all of those folks, I'm going to bucket into the category of climbing. And as we talk through these things, there's places here where the values change and the ratios of importance change, and there's some nuance, but everybody is going to everyone who's in that space is going to largely fall into that same bucket. And if you're a backcountry skier, or if you're just a hiker who's looking to get better and stronger, a lot of these pieces are going to apply to you too. A little bit lower risk ratio, so some of the math changes, but we'll talk through that. So the 4 big components that we see as being essential for climbers. First, strength to weight ratio. You need to be strong for your muscle mass. You need to be strong for your body weight. A pull-up on for 120-pound frame versus 150-pound frame, one of those is obviously harder to do. And it's not that one is better than the other, but it is about that strength to weight ratio. We need to build and have strong aerobic and alactic capacity. In other words, your ability to go forever, be the Energizer Bunny, your ability to put out short, 10 to 30, maybe 60-second bouts of effort, and then recover back into the aerobic. If you are hitting lactic, you're pumped, you're off, you're done. Chassis integrity, core stability, but also shoulder and hip mobility, range of motion, and ability to create torque and strength in every position. And then the last one is the stress response, which is primarily about a mental component, but also your breathing. If you get stressed and you shut down, game over. If you get stressed and you can control yourself and bring yourself back into focus on the game, whatever it is, whether it's a bouldering problem and just going for that high ball again, or overnight at a bivvy somewhere you didn't expect to be, the better you can control that mental aspect, the safer you're going to be, the better chance of coming back home. So let's now talk a little bit about how we train these things. So strength to weight ratio. We're not talking about power lifters. I'm not talking about building somebody with even 1,000-pound total for bench, squat, and dead. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But what really matters is that we can work in a 10 to 90-second range, right? So here we're starting to talk about time under tension. Set schemes like 3 sets of 8, or 5 sets of 5, or even 8 sets of 3, right? These can all get us into that time range, and we can talk about this this can be squats, this can be bench, this can be deadlift. Are those the right exercises? Well, it depends a little bit on what the gaps are for the athlete and what the exact piece of work is. Pull-ups totally fall into this one. And so if you give me someone who is primarily bouldering and has a short approach or is a competition boulderer, well, how much weight do I need them to be able to squat or deadlift? Not a whole ton, right? I can use it as a way to improve overall strength and reduce body fat, but what's going to really get them strong and have carryover, it's going to be pull-ups and pull-up variations into single arm pull-ups, into lock-offs, weighted work, and then I use my bench as accessory to engage the lats, right? So a lot of us think about pulling motion as accessory work for bench, but if we're pulling ourselves into the world all the time, whether it's up a rope or up a wall, our pulling strength is really important, and our bench is actually the counter that balances it out. It's kind of crazy. So really, a basic lifting program can get us a lot of this stuff, and what matters is that we are keeping people safe and keeping people injury-proof. And so there's accessory work that happens here too. Talking about getting into aerobic and alactic capacity. There is little that will compete with long, moderate intensity sessions for building aerobic and alactic capacity. So a really great one. I would ask you to spend 30 minutes, do 1 sandbag down and up. Other people know it as a sandbag get up. I like down and up. We keep the term get up reserved for kettlebells. But we do 1 sandbag down and up, and then carry that bag for 60 feet, put it down, and repeat. That's it. What we get is some real strength component here. One of those sandbag down and ups, anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds. So we're getting into our strength time frame, but then you're going for 30 minutes. This is beautiful because it pushes you into your alactic system, but then you get to recover into aerobic. And if you get burnt by those down and ups every single time, that actually tells us that the alactic is weak. You might actually be kicking into lactic if you're getting pumped on it. And so we would drop weight until you can move up in it. So again, it's a really simple prescription. But we could also do, what we do a lot in the gym is we can do a kettlebell complex. We could go through a press and a squat and a lunge and a snatch. There are an infinite number of ways that we can put movements together to get some big return on investment, ideally without letting you get hurt and without using the same muscles that you're using when you're training to climb. If you're climbing 5 days a week, I don't want you to be in the gym and get burnt and have your grip fried. I want you to be fresh when you go climb because that's your thing. My job is to help you round that out. So we can use things like this. Again, we get a little bit of rest in between, so we pull back down into aerobic, but doing this, if you've got 30 seconds or 60 seconds worth of work, I guarantee you we're getting into that alactic, but we choose weights where we can keep moving so we don't get to full pump. All right, next up, chassis integrity. This whole idea is core strength. And again, this is credit to Rob from Mountain Tactical Institute, sorry Rob. But this is core strength, but it is also into the shoulders and into the hips. It is your ability to control where you are in space. It's your ability to generate extension and flexion, but also to resist flexion and extension of the spine. It's your ability to create rotation of the spine, but also your ability to resist rotation of the spine. All of these things matter so that whether you are walking with a heavy pack and you've got 60 pounds of gear, or if you've got a short approach and you're getting on a boulder problem, severely overhung and you need to keep your feet on, this is a big deal. So how do we train this? Well, we can take the MTI approach and do a grind, but we can also take an isolation approach and just put in some planks on a frequent basis. We can go to the strong first, go to Pavel's suggestion, 3 days a week, 3 sets of plank for 30 seconds each, maximum tension. We will get the adaptations that we're looking for. Your feet will be more stable on the wall and you will be more stable under that pack. And then the last piece, the stress response. This is an interesting one because I've heard different coaches talk about the stress response in different ways. There is most certainly a suffer through it and like just effing grit it out approach. That's not my approach. My approach is actually to slow down, and I want to teach you how to breathe. So I'm a yoga teacher. I started in the movement practice as a yoga teacher, and I still come back to the value of learning how to breathe well and learning to use the breath to down-regulate. We see a lot of this content now from Kelly Starrett, Mobility WOD, Brian McKenzie of XPT, and CrossFit Unscared and CrossFit Endurance. And these two pieces of being able to down-regulate your stress and pull your system back into homeostasis at a low level of engagement is a really big deal. And if you ever watch documentaries or read stories about the Navy SEALs or Deltas or any operators, one of the things that they work on is learning how to de-stress in the middle of a stressful situation. Otherwise, brothers get hurt. And so the same thing is true. You've just hit the crux of the climb. You need to be able to just pull your energy level back down, reset into an aerobic system via breathing, calm the mind, refocus on the next clip or the next piece of pro, and go. And so how do we do this in the gym? Well, first of all, I create experiences like this that suck, and then you build that mental endurance, and a lot of people speak to just that. But we also spend time doing breathing practice. We will spend time with 5 minutes on the ground practicing box breathing and playing with different patterns and starting to notice the noise in the brain. Because very often when we get into a mental stress, it's that there is some story in the back of the mind that's showing up. We don't have good control of it. It kind of gets us up on edge, and we weren't ready for it. We're not prepared to shut that story back down. And so with the yoga practice, or even just with a meditation practice, or even just some mindfulness work that we do on a kind of regular basis, we can learn to be more in tune with those stories, and we don't get shocked when they show up and we're like, oh yeah, there's that thing, there's that fear of falling on lead, or there's that fear of pumping out before I get to the next bolt, that we can now acknowledge it and say, yeah, I knew you were going to show up. And it sounds esoteric, but the fact is that it works. And my rule is be critical, be questioning. Don't do something just because everyone else is doing it or just because someone told you to do it. If your coach suggests it, give it a shot, see what happens. But more often than not, we've had really good response to people being able to control their stress more as we get into this breathing and mental component. And the other piece here, every once in a while you see the elevation training masks show up. They just released version 3, and these things get a lot of hate. And I think they get hate in part because people use it to increase the intensity of their workouts. I haven't looked at the science that says it's good or bad, but what I'm going to share with you is instead my personal experience, which is that putting that mask on freaks me out. The first time, if I haven't had it on for a month or two, first time I put it on, even just to lay on the floor and breathe, it freaks me out. But then I can slow my breathing back down, connect to the diaphragm, and I breathe better, and my stress level comes down almost immediately. And if I can learn to breathe in that environment, how does that not have some translation to other stressful environments? So we don't generally train with it on, but what we do is we train, and then as we recover, we put it on. Or before we train, we put it on, just so that we are forced to do a little bit of extra work, managing the breath, being really conscious of it. So that's it. This is what we do. Come on in, check us out. We'd love to have you. Shoot me an email, michael@wasatchfitnessacademy.com. You can find us on Facebook, and we'd love to meet you and help you work with your goals. And I will give you, the next thing that I'm going to record is going to be about training for runners, and 80% of this stuff is the same. 80% of this is the same. We have potentially some other things that we factor in because it's a monostructural sport, but if you watch this and you check out the training for runners, please don't be disappointed that a lot of it is the same, because good movement is good movement. We hope to see you soon. Thanks.